Hello YouTube viewers, hope you're all doing good. Welcome to this video. I'm Venkat and this is Just Me, an open source channel. Right, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can backup and restore your Kubernetes cluster. I wanted to do this video for a very long time, but I didn't get a chance to test that. So now that I got a chance to do it, I wanted to release that as a video because it's very helpful and it's very easy to set up. Once you know how to do it, it comes very handy in various situations. So you're going to learn all about the backup and restore in this video. So stick till the end. There might be simple steps which I don't want you to miss. Okay, so Velero, previously it's Heptio Ark. So if you want to know more about Velero and want to read more documentations regarding the Velero, go to search for Velero, and there is a GitHub page for that, Heptio Velero, and they've got detailed installation instructions for you. And there's also the Heptio.com Velero. If you want to read more about Valeria, how to backup your cluster, how to restore your cluster, and so on, you can feel free to read that. But I've got a documentation, a quick notes for those of you who wanted to get started quickly. And I've got a notes in my GitHub repository, which I will share in the description. So in my Kubernetes repository under docs, setup Velero notes. So I've got a quick notes instead of reading all the manual pages and everything. I ran through all of them. I understood everything, and then that's the gist of it. So this is all it's needed to set up Velero. So before that, I'm going to bring up my notes to show you what's exactly we are going to do in this video. Okay, so for Velero, you need a backup storage location. So whenever you create backups of your cluster, the Velero process needs a storage location where it can store the backups. So it needs an object storage. So you can either use Amazon S3 for that, or Google Cloud for storage, or if you don't have access to those, you can have your own object storage server. So MinIO is one of those object storage server for cloud environment. So you can check that out if you type in MinIO. So there it is. So object storage for AI. So it's 100% open source. It's Amazon S3 compatible object storage. So that's what we're going to be using in this video. So we'll be using Docker container to run a MinIO or MinIO instance for the object storage. Okay, and once you run the object storage, similar to how you create a bucket in your Amazon account, so we need to create buckets, and then we can use Velero to back up whatever you want from the cluster to these buckets. So when I say backup in Velero, say for example you've got multiple namespaces, you can back up the entire cluster, or if you want, you can back up just a particular namespace, or if you want, you can just back up a particular resources. Say for example, I want to back up the entire cluster. There's a command for that. You can do that. And if you want to back up just one namespace and every resource, all types of resource, pods, replica sets, deployments, roles, role bindings, and so on, persistent volume claims, whatever you defined in that namespace, if you want to back up, that's possible, just one namespace. And you can also restrict by what type of resources you want to back up. Say, for example, I want to back up all pods across all namespaces. That's possible. So I'll show you an example how to do that. There is also an inversion, I mean exclude. So you can back up the entire cluster except a particular namespace, or you can back up an entire cluster except a particular type of resources. So I want to back up the entire cluster, but I don't want config maps or anything like that. Okay, so whenever you do backup, the default time to live is 30 days, which means after 30 days, the backups will be gone, wiped. But you can configure time to live, TTL, to be any number of days depending on your use case. Okay, so that's the setup. That's what we're going to do in this video, and I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so the command that I'm going to run is here. So we need to do docker pull MinIO slash MinIO. I've already done that. Docker pull MinIO slash MinIO. So since I've got the Docker, the MinIO container image already, so it's not going to pull anything new. Um, oh, there might be an update to that. Okay, so the image that I downloaded was like a couple days older, so they might have released a new version. So it's pulling the latest tag from that image. And then we're going to run the docker run command, and we are going to give it a name, MinIO, because if you don't give that, as you know, when you run Docker containers, it gets a random name. And then we're going to map port 9000 to the local host. So the proxy, whatever you send request to localhost 9000 will get proxy to the 9000 port inside the container. So that's where the MinIO server listens for. And we are going to create a local Docker volume, and we're going to map that to the slash data inside the container for persistence. And if you don't do this volume mount, and when you stop this Docker container and restart it, all your buckets will be gone. So for persistence, we are using Docker local volumes, and we are using the MinIO container image, and this is the command to start the server. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to do that on a different terminal here. Okay, so docker run, it's the same command, docker run minus minus name MinIO port mapping 9000, and we are binding volume mount MinIO on the date, sorry, on the command. Okay, so now it's running, and you can see, so that's the IP address of my Docker container, 172.17.0.5. Port 9000, and it's mapped to the local host 9000. So it should be ready in our uh, localhost colon 9000. Okay, so let's check that out. If I go to localhost colon 9000, or I can use my IP address 192.168.1.81. Let's do that. 192.168.1.81 colon 9000. Okay, cool. So that's the MinIO dashboard. So it's asking for access key and secret key. So how would you get that? Okay, let's go back to the terminal. I'm going to open up another terminal, and okay, instead of doing that here, let's go back. Okay, and open up another terminal. Docker ps. So this is the container, and the name is MinIO. Okay. And if you look in my GitHub documentation, so I'm going to run this command. What this command basically does is the access key and the secret key are auto-generated. Those keys are auto-generated when you run the Docker run command for MinIO. So it's stored inside the container. We're going to look at slash data dot minio.sys slash config, and the file is config.json. Okay, so docker exec minus it for interactive, and the container name is MinIO. We are going to cat that file, and we are going to grep for access key and secret key. So all you have to do is run this command. If you're interested, you can get a shell into that container. For example, docker exec minus it MinIO shell. So you are inside that shell. If you do ls, there is data directory here. ls data, you don't see anything because it's a hidden directory. .minio.sys, and you see that config directory, and inside that config directory you have the config.json. So you can look at what's inside that config.json, or you can simply run this command, copy and paste. Okay, so there you go. You've got the access key and the secret key. So I'm going to copy the access key, and switch to the MinIO website, paste that, and the secret key is this one, copy and paste it. Login. So there you go. So we are now inside the MinIO website. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the password to something that's readable, something that's easy to remember. current secret key. So I've already copied that. It's in my clipboard, and I'm going to paste that. New access key. I'm going to change that to MinIO, and the new secret key is MinIO123. Update. Okay, let's do a quick testing. Sign out and sign back in with the new credentials. MinIO, MinIO123. Okay, cool. So we are now logged in. Right. Um, Now what we're going to do is we are going to create a bucket. Okay, let me do that. So there is a plus icon here, and if you click that, there you go, create bucket, and give it a name, Cube Demo. Enter, and the bucket is created. It will be here. So there is Cube Demo bucket, and at the moment there is nothing inside Cube Demo. Okay, so that's all needed on the MinIO side. So we've got an object storage server. We are good to go. Now we have to install Velero, and we can start backing up our cluster. So I've got the cluster set up already. kubectl get nodes. So I've got a so I'm using kind Kubernetes in Docker. So you have to export the kube config. So I've already done a video on this one, how to set up Kubernetes, how to run your Kubernetes cluster entirely using Docker, using kindness Kubernetes in Docker. So that's what I'm using in this video as well. kubectl version minus minus short. So I'm on version 1.15.0. I guess that's the latest. kubectl get nodes. So I've got one master node and two worker nodes. That's all good. Okay, so um, let's go back to our nodes. So now what we're gonna do is change the access key. We did that. So download Velero. So you can download Velero by going to their website, whatever version you want. So as of recording this video, the latest version is version 1.0.0. So I'm going to copy that command, paste it. Okay, so that's getting downloaded. Okay, all right, so that's downloaded. So now there is Velero v1. Okay, so now I'm going to extract that. tar exec have Velero. Okay, that's done. Now I'm going to, so there is this directory here. If you take a look at that, there is the Velero binary here. So that's the only thing we need from the tarball. Sudo move Velero. So I'm going to move that under user local bin. That's it. So now I don't need anything else. Velero star. Okay, so which Velero? So Velero is in my user local bin and it's in my path. So we are good now. Velero version. So that's the version. Server version is not there because we haven't installed or deployed Velero into the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so let's do that. So before doing that, we need to have some configurations set up. So we need to create a credentials file where we paste our secret key and access key so that Velero knows how to connect to our MinIO browser here, MinIO object storage server. So it needs the access key and secret key to connect and upload the backup files to the bucket in that MinIO object server. Okay, so for that we need to create a credentials file. So it's this one, copy that and paste it. Okay, so as you can see, since we changed the access key to MinIO and secret key to MinIO123, so whatever you have as your access key and secret key, update this file. So the file can be any name. So I've named it as minio.credentials. If I do cat minio.credentials, you can see default AWS access key ID. So that's the format, AWS underscore access underscore key underscore ID and AWS underscore secret underscore access underscore key. So that's important. Right, so we've got that, we got the credentials file. So now we are good to install Velero with the install command, Velero install. So Velero install and provider. Don't get confused when I type AWS because MinIO object storage is similar to, is compatible with Amazon S3. So we're going to use the same configuration as if you're using Amazon S3 bucket. So provider is AWS minus minus bucket name. So the bucket we created in MinIO, which is Kube demo. And then the secret file is minio.credentials, and backup location config minus minus backup location config. So that's the uh, backup location. We have to define the backup location where Velero can upload the backups to. So region equals MinIO, whatever you call it. And there is two additional options that you need to do, which are down here. S3 force path style equals true. So if you're using MinIO, like what I'm using right now, you have to use this option. So that's mandatory. S3 force path style equals true. And finally, S3 URL. So that's the URL to the MinIO um, website, which is http colon my IP address 192.168.1.81 colon 9000. So that's all it's needed. So when I press enter, so you need to have a Kubernetes cluster ready. So without a Kubernetes cluster, Velero install won't work. So what it's going to do is Velero is going to create a namespace inside your Kubernetes cluster, and it's going to deploy a bunch of resources, which I will show you. So it's going to use the kube configuration file. So we haven't defined which cluster to deploy the resources to, but since we have the config file here, ls.kube kind config, so that's going to use that config file. Okay, so if I press enter, okay, there you go. So it has done lots of resources. So now if I check kubectl get namespace, you can see the Velero namespace got created. kubectl minus n Velero get all. So container is getting created. So there is the Velero pod. There's a deployment and a replica set. kubectl get all. It's still getting created. kubectl get all. Oh, sorry. kubectl minus n Velero get all. Okay, so it's all in the running state. It is all looking good. So now we are ready to back up our cluster. Okay, so there are a few steps that you can help documentation if you want to check Velero version. So that's the version 1.0.0. And you can do Velero help to list the commands that you can use. So here are the list of commands. Velero backup. Velero, if you want to know more about details about the backup command, you can do Velero help backup. So that will give you additional information. And Velero backup location get. Yeah. So we've defined one backup location. Provider is AWS and the bucket is Kube demo. So that's how you do that. And if you want to list the existing backups, Velero backup get. So as you can see, there's no backups. So we will create a backup and see how it works. So if I do Velero backup and do tab, the tab completion is not there. So it's useful to have a tab completion because you don't want to remember all the commands. If you just press tab, it will show you a list of options, list of commands that are available. So to enable tab completion, there is a command um, which is source. So the command is Velero completion and the shell name. If you're using bash, go for bash. And as I'm using zsh, I'm using zsh. And I'm going to source the output of this command. Source the output of that command. So if you're using bash, just replace zsh with bash. That's done. So now if I do Velero backup, I'm just typing BA and pressing tab. So backup, G, tab, and get. So now tab completion is working fine. So we don't have any backup. And in the MinIO browser, the kube demo bucket is empty. So now let's see how we can create a backup. Okay, so for this step, for this demo, I'm going to create a separate namespace to show you how you can back up just a particular namespace. Okay, kubectl get namespace, kubectl create namespace testing, kubectl get namespace, testing is there. Let's deploy an Nginx application with two replicas inside that testing namespace. Kubectl -n testing, run nginx -mage nginx replicas 2. Okay, kubectl -n testing get all. Container is getting created. A deployment with two replicas. Let's wait for it to complete. Kubectl -n testing get all. Okay, cool. So our nginx pods are running. Right, at this point, let's do a backup. So before that, if I show you kubectl -n Velero get backups, you don't have backup. So as you can see, I'm doing a command Velero get, sorry, kubectl get backups. Backups is a custom resource definition that got deployed as part of Velero install. So backups is not a normal Kubernetes resource. It's deployed when we did the Velero install. It's a custom resource definition. If you want to see other CRDs that got installed, that got deployed, kubectl -n Velero get CRDs. So these are the custom resource definitions that got deployed as part of the Velero install process. Okay, so kubectl -n Velero get backups. So now there is no backup. Velero backup get. There is no backup, so we are going to create a backup. So the command to create backup is Velero backup creates, and you have to give it a name. First backup. If you don't give it a name, I think it's gonna give you a random name. It's gonna generate a random name. And so if you just do this, Velero backup create first backup, it's gonna back up your entire cluster. So what I'm going to do now is I'm only interested in that testing namespace. So the option to do that is include namespaces testing, right? So what I'm saying here is I want to back up the cluster, but just the testing namespace, not everything. And if you want, you can specify include resources, pods, command, deployments, and so on. So you can restrict what type of resources you want in that particular namespace. If you don't give anything, it's going to back up every resource, all the resources inside the testing namespace. And there is also exclude resources pods, so which means, so I want to back up just the name, just the testing namespace, and I want to back up all the resources except pods, except the resources of type pods. I want to back up everything else. So that's there. And if you do exclude namespaces testing, so that's going to back up the entire cluster excluding the testing namespace. And exclude resources uh, config maps. So that's going to back up your entire cluster, all the namespace, but it's not going to back up any of the config maps. It's going to exclude the config maps completely. So those are the options you can pass: include namespaces, include resources, exclude namespaces, exclude resources. So let's go with include namespaces testing. Okay. Hit enter. Okay, backup request submitted successfully. Run Velero backup describe and Velero backup logs for more details. Okay, so now if I do kubectl -n Velero get backups, so there is the first backup that we created. And if I do Velero backup get, so there you go. So that's your first backup. And if you do Velero backup describe first backup, pipe that to less. So name is first backup, namespace, it's in Velero. As you can see, we used the Velero namespace to get the backups. Phase, so the backup is completed. Namespaces included, we've only included the testing namespace. We didn't exclude anything. Resources, we didn't specify anything, so by default everything is included, nothing is excluded. And storage location is default, which is our AWS provider, and the TTL is 720 hours, which means it's valid for 30 days. And persistent volumes, none included. So bear in mind, I'm not doing the snapshot backup. So if you've got a persistent volume or anything, you have to read the Velero documentation. So this is just to give you a quick heads up, quick tour of how you can start using Velero to back up your cluster. But this is not an in-depth tutorial. So if you want to back up a persistent volume, you have to have a storage provider that supports those things. So it becomes a little bit complicated if I show you that in this video. So maybe I'll show that in another video. So this one, let's keep it simple. So it's 30 days, TTL is 30 days. The backups are going to get deleted after 30 days, right? Okay, back in the MinIO, sorry, MinIO, I keep saying MinIO. So MinIO, if you click Cube Demo, so now you can see two folders inside the Cube Demo bucket. So don't worry about the metadata. Go into backups. So that is the first backup. And if you see there are a bunch of um, files that got created as part of the backup. So let's go back to Cube Demo and let's do a restore. So let's say we accidentally deleted the namespace. kubectl delete namespace testing. Okay, the testing namespace has been deleted. kubectl get namespace. So we just deleted the testing namespace and all the Nginx application, the two replicas are now completely gone. So now what we are going to do is we are going to restore that state from the backup. So to restore, Velero restore get. So we didn't do any restore. So restore is similar to backup. So the command to do is Velero restore create. So we are creating a restoration process. So Velero restore create. Similar to backup, you're going to give it a name. So we are going to uh, restore the first backup. So it makes sense to name it first backup restore, for example, restore one. And the next option is from backup and the backup name, first backup. So we are creating a restore point from the backup, first backup. Let's see what it's going to do. Okay, restore request submitted successfully. And if I do Velero restore get, so that's the restore that we did and the status is completed. If you want to look at the logs, you can look at the logs, Velero restore logs and the name of the restore. Or if you want, you can see the details, Velero restore describe first backup restore one, quite that to less. So name of the restore phase completed. So we've restored everything, whatever that's in the backup, and resources, everything. Okay, so that's all looking good. It's also possible when you back up an entire cluster, and if you want to restore it, you don't have to restore the entire cluster. You can restore similar to Velero backup, where you use the minus minus include namespace, include resources, exclude namespace, exclude resources. You can use that with Velero restore as well. So that will restore whatever you want it to restore. So you can, from the entire cluster backup, I want only this namespace to be restored, or I want just all the config maps from all the namespaces to be restored. So that works when you dump an entire cluster. When you back up an entire cluster, you can restore whatever you want. You don't have to restore the entire thing. Okay, so if I do kubectl get namespace, wow, testing is back. Let's see what's in there. kubectl testing get all, and you can see our two Nginx pods replicas are in the running state. So that's how you restore it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and delete this backup and delete this restore and see what's going to happen. So back in the MinIO browser, so you've got a directory for restores as well when we did the restore. So everything is stored in the cube demo bucket. So first backup restore one, so that's the restore we did. Okay, let's delete it. How do you delete the restore and backups? Velero restore delete first backup restore 1. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. Okay, restore first backup restore has been deleted. Velero restore get. So it says there is nothing, no restores. And if you refresh this cube demo, you still see restores, and you still see the first backup restore 1. That to me is a bug, because I've tried that many times. It's not deleting Velero restore delete is not deleting it from the actual browser, actual bucket. Okay, but actually that works for backups but not for restores. Let's delete the backup. Velero backup get. So we have one backup. Velero backup delete first backup. Are you sure? Yes. Velero backup get. So we don't have any backups, and if you refresh the bucket, so the backup directory is gone in the cube demo bucket. So that's what I would expect for the restores as well. Maybe they might fix this in the next minor version or something, if somebody raised this as an issue. Okay, that's not a big deal for us, just to show you that I encountered this problem. Okay, so what else we could do? There is schedule, backup schedule that you can do. So you don't want to run manually Velero backup create and so on. So what you can do is you can create a backup schedule that runs periodically. Say you want to run a backup every night, or once in every week, or every 2 hours, every 5 hours, whatever frequency you want. Say, for example, you've got a production namespace that you want to back up every 2 hours, and you've got a testing namespace that you want to back up once in a week. You can create backup schedules. So let's try and create the backup schedule. Velero schedule get. So we don't have any schedules at the moment. So let's create one. Velero schedule create. I'll give it a name first. Schedule, and minus minus schedule is the option. So here you're going to say how often you want to run the backups. So it's a normal cron based syntax. If you're familiar with cron syntax, star 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 star, which essentially means every minute, every day of the month, every day of the week, all through the year. So every single minute it's going to the backup. Or if you want, every 15 minutes or so, every 30 minutes, or so that's every hour. Okay. Or there is also another format that you can use, at every 10 minutes, or at every 2 hours or so, um, days, at every 2 days, at every 1 week. So there are multiple formats that you can use. You can play with that. You can look at the Velero documentation for multiple formats. So for this, I'm going to use at every 1 minute. So that's going to back up the entire cluster every minute. Okay, but I don't want that. I just want to restrict that to testing namespace, kubectl get namespace testing. So I just want to back up the testing namespace every minute. Okay, so schedule, first schedule created successfully. Let's take a look at that. Velero schedule describe first schedule. Okay, so that's the first schedule. The status is enabled, and backup template namespace. We are going to just back up the testing namespace, and we're going to back up all types of resources. And the TTL is again 30 days. I'll show you how to change the TTL. Okay, so that's created, and if I do Velero backup get, so it has already done a first backup. And if I refresh the cube demo bucket here, so there is backup here, and the backup name will be the schedule name followed by the timestamp when it actually created the backup. Okay, Velero schedule get. Okay, last backup was 1 minute ago, so very shortly it should create another backup. Last backup 1 minute ago. Okay, so Velero backup get. Yeah, there you go. So that's the second backup. So every minute it does the backup, and if you can see here, the expiry is 29 days. Okay, and if you refresh this bucket, and you will see the second. So that's how you schedule a backup. It can be any frequency you want. And now let's see the TTL option, how long it's valid for. Okay, I'm gonna delete the schedule, delete. If you know the schedule name, you can delete it, or if you want to delete all the backup schedules, you can pass minus minus all option. Sure, yes. Velero backup get. So if you delete a schedule, you're just deleting the schedule or not deleting the actual backups. So let's go ahead and delete the backups as well. Backup delete minus minus all. Yes. Okay, so that's all gone. And if I go back to Kube demo, the backup directory is gone. kubectl minus n Velero get backups. We don't have any backups. Velero backup get, so we don't have any backups. Okay, let's quickly create a backup specifying the time to live. Okay, so Velero backup create, let's call it second backup this time. Second backup minus minus include namespaces, cube system, for example, uh, and then minus minus TTL is going to be, let's say, 2 hours. Okay, backup is done. And if I do Velero backup describe second backup, pipe that to less, and you can see here TTL time to live is 2 hours. That's what we wanted. Velero backup get. Okay, expires 1 hour. It says it's valid for 2 hours. Expires is 1 hour. I don't know why is it showing 1 hour, but even for the 30-day expiry, if you saw my previous um, output, it showed 29 days. So it means it's only showing the rounded number, not 1.9 hours or whatever it is. So it's showing you the rounded value 1 hour. Okay, so that's how you create the backup, you create the restore and so on. Maybe in another video, I don't want to lengthen this video. So this is just to give you a quick start of how you can get started using the Velero for backup. I was wanting to do this video for a very long time, but I didn't get a chance to do it. Maybe in my next video, I'll show you how you can migrate resources from one cluster to another cluster. So I'm going to set up two clusters, and you can specify what resource you want from one cluster and migrate them to another cluster, or you can entirely create a new cluster from the old cluster. Say for example, you've got a production cluster and you want to create a similar environment, call it a testing cluster, so you can back up the entire production cluster and then restore it onto the testing cluster, so it's a kind of replica or something. Or you can dump the entire cluster and you can restore specific resources onto the another cluster. So that's another use case. Maybe if I get some time, I've got other videos in the pipeline that I'm preparing right now. So when I get some time, I'll try and do that. Meanwhile, if you want to try doing that, please let me know in the comment if you succeeded. It should be fairly straightforward, but when you create a new cluster, I'll give you a heads up how you're gonna achieve that. So the first cluster setup is similar to what I've shown in this video, and the new cluster where you are going to import this backup, the way you got to set up is, so another brand new cluster, and you have to deploy Velero into that cluster, but not using the usual options. So you have to use Velero install minus minus dry run, and you have to do some changes, restore only equals true or something. But you should be able to find that in the documentation, Velero documentation. Go through that, and if you get anywhere, please let me know in the comments. It will help me in my in my next video's preparation. Okay, cool. I hope you found this video useful, and please share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you're not clear about anything in this video, or if something is not working the right way, because Kubernetes is fast growing and all the other tools are also growing in an equal pace, The thing that I'm showing you today might not work tomorrow, so you need to tweak a little bit. And if you're getting stuck, if you don't know, if you need more information, please don't hesitate to ask me in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay, thank you so much for your time watching this video today. I will see you all in another video. Bye bye.